All right. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the week of October 23rd through 29th. Um, and this week, we are going to actually sort of complete the unit that we've been working through. Um, the last 3 or 4 weeks, we've been studying the memory, information processing theory, engagement science, and I just want to wrap this unit up in a good way. So as a reminder, we kind of started, I would say, this October 2 through 8 video, as well as the 9 through 15, last week's week, and then this week's week. That's what we're going to wrap up. And in order to wrap up all these concepts we've been talking about, I'm going to have you do a big project. And that's really the only thing you're going to have to do this week, as well as next week as well. This project is going to be hopefully like the summation of lots of work and lots of learning that you've been doing. And in order to make this project worthwhile for you, I'm going to give you 2 weeks to do it. So long story short, we've been studying, I guess, what you could really just summarize as information processing theory. But within information processing theory, we've really talked about 2 different components. We've talked about cognition, which is involving the memory, and which involves working memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, attention. And then we've been talking, on the other hand, about engagement science, which is really about meaningfulness and focus and synthesizing information and caring about the assignments in a way that matter. So like I said, we have cognition and engagement. Those are the kind of the 2 concepts informing this unit. And really the major argument that I've been making throughout this unit is that good teachers design lessons that capture students' interest, makes them want to pay attention, conveys a sense of meaningfulness to them about the work that they're doing, and therefore concludes in them being engaged in such a way that they learn in a synaptic connection sort of way. They're able to learn and remember things. And so, yeah, we have engagement science as the main subject just last week, and you guys completed an assignment on that. And we looked at what gets kids invested in an assignment, what gets kids interested. And really, so on all of this learning that we've done, I only think it's appropriate that we take the theories that we've been covering and turn it into practice. And what better way than to write a lesson plan that involves our theories becoming lessons. And so this week and next week, you're going to be doing an extended lesson plan as your project. It's going to be worth 60 points, and there's going to be 3 pieces to it. Each of them are going to be worth 20 points. So let me just go into this big, large-scale assignment with you all. You can download this on Moodle. This is my assignment sheet. You're going to have to make one of these as well. But just background information, last 3 or 4 weeks, we've learned about how students' working memories interact with their attention, cognition, memory of content, accumulation of all this is engagement science. I wonder why that's underlined. I know that this is a word. Sure, we'll just fix it. Which looks deeply at how teachers can prepare meaningful lessons that captivate student interest, show them meaning, and cement itself in long-term memory. That's the goal. That's the goal. So as part of this, we've information processing theory or cognition. I can just write that. Cognition, as well as engagement theory. So here's the instructions. With all of these theories in mind, let's change our learning from theoretical to practical by developing actual lesson plans that are focused on engaging students. That's the big goal. That's why this is bolded. I want you to design a lesson plan that is intended to maximize engagement. Your lesson can be on anything. It can be on anything you want. And if you're working as a teacher, I would highly recommend using this as an actual lesson plan that you teach to your students. Okay, kill two birds with one stone and make this something you actually teach. If you are not working as a teacher, I want you to think about what age group do I want to teach and what subject do I want to teach. You're going to have to pick an age group and a subject. And the goal, as a reminder, is to truly engage students. Let me just talk about that goal real quick. I could make you guys write a quiz or create an assignment for your students that's a fill in the blank or like a multiple choice, and that's really easy for you guys to do. But you have to think to yourselves, when you hand this to your students, are they going to be engaged if they do that? And our whole study the last 3 weeks has pretty much said no. That's a way to gather data, which is useful. You need to gather data. But if you want that engagement learning, you need to start thinking outside of the box a little bit. This is where activities, project-based learning, there's hands-on lessons. Think back to your own education. What were the most engaging lessons? Scavenger hunts, anything that mixes modalities and has like an art project component or a website design project component. Maybe it's cross-curricular and involves learning in 2 different subjects at once, right? Engagement is relying on you guys making things meaningful for your students so that they are interested and see the value in it and just think to themselves, I really care about this. I want to learn it. Boom. So that's the goal. In order to do this, and this is actually my process for my lesson plans, maybe the template here is not exactly what I would use, but I am literally, this is how I think through my assignments that I give you guys as well. You have a plan. Step 1, that's the first assignment that you're going to submit with 20 points. Then you give an assignment sheet that specifically spells out, this is what I'm requiring of you to do, and this is what I hope the product will look like, and here's how I'm going to grade you. Okay, so the assignment or the assessment component, again, in many settings, this would just be an assignment like in math class with 20 questions. We're not aiming for that though. We're trying to increase engagement. So we need to think of a way to get them doing something more than just filling in questions or answering questions. Engagement, engagement, engagement. Think to yourself, how do I engage my students, right? And then you're going to craft an assignment or an assignment sheet that does just that. That's what this is. This single page you're looking at right now is an assignment sheet. Is this going to engage you? I hope so. I hope that this makes you excited. I hope you get interested in thinking about this kind of thing. It's a project, right? You're going to have to create a project, and I hope it's more interesting than just filling out questions on a test, which I could have made you do, by the way, but I'm not. And then finally, I think an example is always really, really useful, and I try to give examples as much as possible. So if you're going to give students an assignment that's a little bit more ambiguous in nature or more open-ended, they need to see an example of the final product. And so the way you're going to do this is you're going to have a plan, you're going to create a lesson, and then you're going to do it, because that's how you get your example, is by doing it. We're going to do these 2 this week, and you're going to do it next week. So the example can be your assignment next week, not this week. So lesson plan, an assignment itself, and then an example of that A+ level work that you want to see your students do. So here's an example, since that's what it's working. Maybe for let me just use an example from an actual class that I'm teaching, creative writing. I would develop my lesson plan, and I'll show you the template that I'm making you guys use, and that I use something very similar. And I'm going to have them do a creative memoir project where they pick a moment in their life and they write about it in a creative manner. I want a single page. I want it single space, da-da-da-da-da. The assignment that I actually give them is like this, that you're seeing, this whole thing. It's going to say, this is what I want. Okay, I want a memoir that has some creative elements into it. When I say creative elements, I mean this, 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 and this. And here's why. Give them the meaning in it, right? That's what this whole background information is. I'm trying to show you guys why this matters. Like, I have the meaningfulness component built into the assignment, and hopefully you do the same. But as you address students, you're telling them, This is how it's going to benefit you. This is why it should matter to you. You give them that assignment sheet, you walk them through the process, and then you give them the example. So then I would give them an example of 1 page of memoir that I would write and I would give them. I hope that makes sense. That's what we're doing for our lesson planning process here. In real life, you don't always have the lesson plan in writing. You might just have notes in a notebook or something along those lines. Or maybe it's just upstairs. I don't know. I always wrote my lesson plans out because I felt like it was the best practice for me. They were short, but I had lesson plans for a week or 2 in advance at all time. And then you have to get the assignment ready. You have to have a product that you give your students so that they can refer back to what you're asking them and then that example. So this is literally how to this day I do my lesson planning, and I'm just making you do it now as well. I'm not going to save it. So those are the 3 components. This week you have to do 2 of them. You have to do your lesson plan and you have to create your assignment that you're giving kids. Next week you will do the assignment as your example to give to students. For your lesson plan template, spend a lot of time thinking about this. So creating a lesson plan, using lesson plan templates is a part of every pre-service teacher's work that they complete. And as you get to your practicums and your student teaching, you'll also put together what's called a teacher work sample, a TWS. And a part of your teacher work sample is typically 5 lesson plans using a framework provided by the institution you're going through. At Montana State and a lot of other colleges, they use what's called the Danielson lesson plan model. I took the Danielson lesson plan model, which you can literally just Google it, and like Montana State was where I was last, so it's popping up. But this is like what, when I was getting my teacher's degree through MSU, this was the lesson plan template I had to use for my teacher work sample. It gets a little tedious. Specifically, the relationship to unit structure makes no sense for what we're doing here. You're not designing a unit, you're designing a lesson. And then I'm actually not requiring you to make it standards aligned either, simply because you're not all going to go to standards-based schools. You're going to teach the standards, but you're not necessarily going to standards align everything unless your school's standards-based. Additionally, concept prerequisites, that's also standards-based language. And then assessment is kind of baked into this assignment itself, so I took that off as well. So you can see I borrowed a lot from this template, but I made it more, I'd say, student-friendly for you guys. So you're going to fill this out for your first component of your assignment. And I'm actually calling this the DCC Education Department lesson plan template because I think this will work well for us in the education department. But I want your feedback on what it was like preparing a lesson with this template, and I can change some things as needed. Oh my goodness, typo. Man. Whatever. Just is what it is. I'm going to have to re-upload. But what you'll do is you'll put the class that you are teaching, not my class. Don't put education psychology. Put 8th grade math or 3rd grade reading, or whatever your lesson that you are teaching, whatever you pick out a lesson that you want to teach and make that the class you're teaching, even if it's theoretical. Jersey, you're going to use your actual class here, of course. The date is today's date, or just the date that you would teach this lesson. Just use today's. The unit, you can just come up with a unit title that's made up on, this is our fractions unit, or this is our To Kill a Mockingbird unit, or this is our unit of social studies on Montana history, and then give your lesson a name, a title. Okay, you're going to walk me through your instructional outcomes using these 2 sentence starters, one or the other. Students will know ... or students will be able to ... You might just have one, you might have 2. What do you want your kids to know when they finish it? For creative writing, right now I'm trying to teach, we're going to spend the week on dialogue. So I'll say students will be able to use dialogue in their writing assignments to enhance the effectiveness of their character development. Boom. That's it. Then down here I have your framework, which has 3 parts. Again, I took this from Danielson, but I'm skipping it. You'll have a warm-up or a hook. Think of that, or it could even just be something more behavioral. This could simply be every day when your kids walk into this class, they read for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, or every day when they come into math class, they do these 3 math facts up on the board. It could be a daily thing that you picture yourself doing as a warm-up or a hook. The primary instruction activities, I gave you 5 lines for this. You might need more. This is where you're going to write what your lesson is. What are you going to teach? How are you going to teach it? This is going to be the actual methodology of your instruction. I'm going to do direct instruction. I'm going to do a hands-on thing. I'm going to walk them through on the board and have them do these practice problems. If it would be easier for you guys to use one of the frameworks that we covered last week, we covered the I do, let me make this not bold, I do, we do, you do framework. You remember that. Or there's another one that was more student language in my slideshow from last week as well. You can borrow either of those. So then you could say the primary instruction activities, we have an I do. I teach a lesson on blank directly through use of a PowerPoint, as well as notes. Okay. You don't have to make a PowerPoint, right? I'm not making you build everything for your lesson. Use a PowerPoint. Students take notes. Okay. Then you'd have your we do, and this is what you're going to do with the students. We do practice several problems together, right? That feels like math. Or we read a section of blank together. Okay. Then the big part is the you do. This is what you're going to build your lesson plan for. What are you going to make your kids do on their own? Okay, so the you do here becomes your component 2. So you're just going to summarize it here, but then you're going to build that actual assignment in right here, your assignment to students. What are you going to have the kids do on their own to learn the material? Okay, that's the question. And again, engagement's the goal. So you're not just going to have them do a quiz, right? That'd be not engaging. So you're not going to do that. So I do, we do, and then the you do is really going to be that part that you have students focus on. I really do believe the more creative you can be, the better. Things like escape rooms, things like gallery walks, projects, website design, having students take a math concept and apply it to a small business startup, which is imaginary, of course, or a Monopoly game, or something like that, right? Find a way to engage the students for the you do here, okay? The you do is the key. And then to wrap up, you're just picturing yourself teaching. You typically don't just end class. You want to know where your students are at. So maybe you have them turn in a note card with their plan for their project or something like that. Don't overthink the wrap up. Okay. Then you're going to also include in this lesson plan your differentiation plan. This is also kind of more into like your SPED consideration of what are you going to do for your kids who don't get it? What are you going to do for your kids who do get it right away? There might be too quick. And then what about the students who are on an IEP or 504, right? You're going to also include that. This is where I added my own twist to this lesson plan, evidence-based. I want your instructional strategies to be evidence-based. Evidence in an academic context is 3 different things is evidence. The first would be theory, which is what we've been covering in this class, okay? And I want you to pick one, engagement theory or cognition / information processing theory. I want you to base your unit, or excuse me, your lesson, ideally the whole unit, but your lesson, base it in one of these theories. Engagement theory tells me blank, so this is why I'm building my lesson this way. Strategies, right? Strategies kind of goes hand in hand with theory. We have theory that leads to strategies. This would be grouping. This would be you're getting your kids involved with an external audience, something like that. Or personal observations. This is simply Johnny loves this stuff. I know Johnny, and Johnny loves blank and blank. For my students who are not working in a teaching capacity, you're just going to have to make it up if you do a personal observation. Everyone needs a theory. You don't need necessarily strategy or personal observation, but everybody needs to include theory here. And then finally, preparation would be what materials do you need? What grouping strategies do you need to prepare for? If you're going to do a grouping strategy, it probably shouldn't be just the kids pick their own. So you kind of need to have a plan going into it. I'm going to do it randomly by drawing sticks. I'm going to, you need materials sometimes for that kind of thing. Class arrangement. Do you need to move desks? Environment. Do you need certain thing playing on the whiteboard during this? Do you need music? Do you need any environmental factors? Do you need different spots in your room that kids can go? If you're going to do a stations exercise, stations is an awesome idea for your primary instruction. I teach it, we practice it, and now you do. You're going to go to stations. That's awesome. You're going to have an environmental setup for your stations then. Okay. That's the lesson plan. Then the component is to actually write the instructions to the students, just like I did with, where is it? Did I miss it? Just like this, you guys. This is a deliverable product to give to my students so that you guys know what the assignment is. Your students need that. Even third grade students probably would like a half sheet or just even like a small instruction sheet that they can go back to. And they might not need a whole page in third grade, but having a methodology or a product that they can look at and they can go, oh, this is what I'm asked to do. So that's what you're going to turn in as component number 2 is the assignment itself, the instructions itself. So that's the goal. Next week, you're going to actually do it. Next week, the example comes. Don't worry about that yet, but we'll finish this next week. So that's the goal. That's the assignment. It's a little bit of work, but I think it'll be worthwhile. Use the lesson plan template that I gave you, please, and then write an assignment to your students for them to do something for you. That's the goal. I hope that this makes sense, but let me know if you guys have any questions. And remember, engagement. I want this to be engaging. So, cool. See you guys. Let me know if you need any help.